Honestly, I really love that I'm into finally having guests on this show because every guest brings such a unique story. Given the fact that we are in the second season of my Solopreneur life, which is all about starting, it's such a unique place in business when it can cover so many different things like mindset, where the inception of the idea came from, what decisions were made, what challenges were being faced. And all of these things are factors that not just occur in the beginning of when you start your one person business, but they can happen at any point in the lifespan of your entire business, regardless of what your goals are, whether you want to stay a solopreneur and just have that one person business be the way you go moving forward, or if it's something that you want to actually grow into a multi-person workforce. I invited Dale L. Roberts, who's one of my favorite people. I'm so lucky as a solopreneur that I've been able to meet so many unique entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and people just out there doing their thing and so passionate about it and doing well. And to bring them on my show, it's such a treat, and I'm so grateful. And so Dale was someone I was introduced to years ago, and I had Dale as a guest on my first show, which was Simplify and Multiply. And we had so much fun. We hit it off, and we've maintained our relationship since. And so when I reached out to him again to say, hey, Dale, I have a new show, I'd love to have you, he was like, what time? Like, where do I sign up? We have a wonderful conversation here ahead that is so Dale. And I love the conversation because he shares some really personal things that I think are so valuable when you're looking at starting a business. And he shares his story in the first part, which is this part. And in the second part, he talks more prescriptively about some of the tips that he would recommend for solopreneurs as they start. So depending on where you're at in your solopreneur journey, I know that you'll get a lot of benefit from our conversation with Dale L. Roberts. Please enjoy. Welcome to My Solopreneur Life. I'm Terry Pappy, your gracious host, and I am so glad you're here. I have a wonderful episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's have some real talk about what it is to be a solopreneur. So this is incredible that you and I, Dale, are back recording another episode today, and we've done several of these, right? You came on my show and then you interviewed me on yours, and it has been a couple of years since we reconnected. I have a new show now. You've reached some incredible milestones in your business, and I wanted to have you on to talk about starting because I want to hear your starting story. But before we do that, I want my listener to understand who you are today and your accomplishments. So talk about your business today, where you're at, and maybe a little bit about where you're looking forward to going. So fire away, Dale.
It's always a refreshing change of pace. Sometimes I hand the bio off to the hosts and they read it and it feels almost robotic. And I always enjoy just being able to share my story. I'm Dale L. Roberts. I'm a self-published author and video content creator. And I've been teaching people how to write and publish books for the past 9 years. And I've been in the business of writing and publishing books for over 11 years, which is just incredible to think about. I've amassed over 120,000 subscribers and sold hundreds of thousands of books since day one.
That's incredible. And I'm so glad you did that for me. And what's amazing, and I'm just like, wow, it's been that long. And you started in fitness and then you migrated because it's like you cut your teeth in all the, and not just like 2, 3, like tons of fitness books. It's like you could
an absurd amount.
you couldn't get enough of it, and it's so awesome. And those were the kind of like the roots of what really helped you decide that this is it for me. This is who I am, and this is what I'm about, because I can help so many more people by creating these types of content strategies. So, but I don't want to answer all those things for you. So my listener is a solopreneur, whether they are considering starting their own business, they're just starting, or they're in their fifth, 10th, 15th year of running their own one person business. They love it, they're there, but it's always a great opportunity and time to take a fresh look at maybe I need to rethink about how I got started, and maybe I need to kind of have a restart during the process of, like, for me, I had a restart last summer where I
Mhm.
completely restarted my business. I went back and I looked at it and I said, what do I feel like doing now? Because we're constantly changing and evolving. And of course, we're going to react to the marketplace and what the economy is and what people are interested in. I mean, look at how we're having to deal with AI these days.
Yep.
And we do that as part of just kind of continuing to be competitive, but we change as people. And what I'd love for you to share is when you first thought about writing that first fitness book, which I believe was a challenge from your wellness coach. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, you're remembering the
Talk
story
about,
well.
yeah, talk about that time. If you can remember back 10, 13, 14, 15 years ago. I mean, when you add everything up, it's like, holy moly. I mean, me, I'm coming up on my 20th year in business. And I'd love for you to talk about, like, include your mindset, include your environment, like what was making you look at this differently, aside from the
Mhm.
fact that you were challenged. You could have easily said, no, I'm not going to do that, and just continued. So I'd love to hear that part of the story, your starting story.
There are so many moving parts to this, so I'm going to try to piece them all together because it wasn't just any one thing that drove me to write that book. It was a variety of things. I mean, I've been wanting to write a book since I was a boy. In fact, I actually went to college to become a writer. I just dropped out because I became very disinterested, disheartened, and disenfranchised because I was like, oh, I was told I was a great writer in high school. And all of a sudden I went to college and they're like giving me F's on my papers. And I'm like, whoa, what happened here? So life got in the way, and it was up until about 2013. I was working in the healthcare industry, and my corporate wellness coach challenged me to write a book because she's like, you're so good at health and fitness. I think you should write a book. And that's when it just kind of was like, oh, light bulb moment. There was never an instance of me saying, Terry, like, oh, I'm going to make a career of this. It was just merely me scratching an itch. It was not like me placing a flag in the sand and saying, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make a living out of it. It wasn't anything like that. But I would say that at the time, what was happening was my job was taking me away from my wife. And I love spending time with my wife. She's one of the best people in the entire world. And it's a good reason why I married her, right? And she was already living her solopreneur life because she was running a successful Amazon FBA business. She was running an eBay business, and she was all doing this from the comforts of home. And my thought process was we're both very much workaholics. And we have the belief that if we're going to pour all of our energy and love and attention into something, why not make it our own? And so when she left her job, that was inspiration for me. It was a huge motivator. And also, I thought to myself, what can I be able to do to put myself into position just like she does? And that just happened at the same time as me finishing up a book and then publishing it. So when I first got that first paycheck, and I knew how many books I sold, but it wasn't that realization, that deposit into my bank account. And it was like $21 and some odd cents. And that's when the light bulb went off above my head. I'm not going to do Amazon FBA. I'm not going to do eBay. I can help my wife with that part time. And then I can always come back and focus 100% on writing full time. So my thought process was let me go ahead, put in notice. I don't want to burn any bridges because I loved my job. I had great employers. I had a lot of excellent and fantastic friends, so it wasn't an easy decision. But with the fact that I had the opportunity to spend more time with my wife and also just follow her lead, that was enough for me. So my mindset was, I believe I can make this happen. Now, little did I know that I was not prepared for that. I'm because I think I launched my book, what was it, March or May of 2014, because I started writing in 2013. And I went and launched that book The first payday came, I don't know, 60 days after that, I think is how it worked with CreateSpace back in the day. And when I saw that, it wasn't like I immediately went in and told my boss, like, that's it, deuces, I'm out. It was a conversation I had with my wife. And we really kind of mapped this out. And I just pretty much told her, like, look, I can be your lackey for now. And then when my business starts to pick up, I can be able to transition my attention. My mindset was of the belief, I mean, I had almost like this foolhardy, almost delusional belief that as soon as I quit my job, that I was going to make enough money to replace that income. And that's not true. I spent 2 years spinning my wheels. And during that time, I maxed out all my credit cards, drained all my bank accounts, drained my 401k. It was getting bad. And I was getting ready to just say, you know what, let's go back. And it wasn't until I hired a coach that things kind of turned around for me. But starting that mindset was initially not about, let me make this into a living. It wasn't until all of those things lined up. Wife is successful with her business. We need to spend more time together. I just wrote this book. Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to be a writer all of my life. And then everything converged together to come to this position. Now, me becoming a video content creator, that's a different story about when I started with that.
I love that. And you'll definitely have to have Kelly listen to this episode because that's a wonderful acknowledgement of the impact that she had, as well as your desire to just really have a great relationship and spending more time together. There's not a lot of couples that actually really make that a priority, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I love that. And thank you for kind of setting that up. But I always look at those moments where there is something that shows up on our pathway
Mhm.
that creates that inspired idea that is the turnstile that makes you go, wow, this might actually be something that could happen and I could create runway and just move this forward. But here's the thing, you also share the reality of those first 2 years
Oh, yeah.
and what you did. And you kind of, I went through the same thing. I had like zero confidence. I was designing websites for like $17 an hour. I'm like, I'll do, and I over
Oh my
delivered and I free
gosh.
consulted and I did all that stuff because after being laid off, I had the worst like self-value because I'm like, well, if a company won't hire me, who would else would hire
Oh,
me? And it's amazing how that one thing can do it. And for me, when I started, it was someone in my neighborhood who took a chance on me. And I,
yeah.
I put a silly ad in the classifieds, our neighborhood classifieds. And I said, all Baldwin Park residents get 50% off website design. So I was really cheaping out
You
on my
wanted them
hourly rate.
clients.
Yes, I did. I had to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
so, and I had no marketing training. I mean, I was a full-time communications and creative person. So for me, it
Mhm.
was all about doing the tactics. So I love that story. And one of the things that I've heard interestingly is that you're acknowledging that many things kind of came together
Yeah.
to create this event that allowed you to coordinate and work your way into being self-employed.
Mhm.
So as you were going through, I find this first 2 years really interesting. As you were going through those first 2 years before you said you got a coach, and obviously things changed for you because you got some objective guidance that was someone who knew what you needed,
Mhm.
but you had the tactics down for the most part. You could figure that out because Dale, you're so smart. You know the technology, you have an interest in it, and you've
Mhm.
always been on the leading edge of technology. I know through your content, you talk a lot about that. And you can test things and you can say, hey, listen, don't worry about this one because that doesn't work. This is what works because I tried it. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that you just have a real big strength in. But as you were in these 2 years prior to coming up to this coach, you were going
Mhm.
through that, I got to make this work, trying to figure it out. You had Kelly supporting you, helping you along. You were obviously helping her as well. What were some of I want to ask like the mindset things, the things you were thinking about, the attitudes that you were having about who you were, about what the challenge was in front of you, because we're constantly making decisions about things that are happening. So, talk to me about that state of mind during that period.
Mm. I think I remained very optimistic despite the fact that we're just drowning in debt and it's just getting worse and worse. I'm putting more holes in the boat. And it took 2 years to actually get that turning point. But it wasn't until about a year and a half that I hired the coach. That year and a half mark was when I had met him in person in Chicago. He did a post on social media and said, "Hey, I'm going to this Tony Robbins thing in Chicago. Who all wants to meet up with me? Free coaching." And my wife and I were like, "Oh, all we need to do is pay for round trip airfare and Airbnb, and we're going to get free coaching." And at that point, we didn't have the money, but we both knew that we needed to get a better grasp on things. So I think it was, yeah, I get about that year and a half mark where I believe I went from delusional to suddenly like, oh my gosh, I had like those rose colored lenses pulled back and I'm going, I'm screwed. I need to do something now. So after that visit, I knew enough that I needed to secure the financing to hire him as a coach because just that single day I'd spent with him, I learned so much. And one of the things I discovered right away, and this is where I usually tell people the analogy of just a fire hose. I'm like a fire hose. And if there's no one holding the front of that nozzle, it's going to spray everywhere and just
Oh, I
just
can
go
relate.
wild. And I can literally think of the moment that the light bulb went off above my head, that I started to realize that I was getting in my own way. I'm very much ADHD, as if you probably didn't know that already. I'm very hyperactive. I'm all over the place. That means that I'm super creative and probably too much so. Creativity is just oozing out of me. So the problem is, I wanted to write a book about this. I want to write a book about that. I wanted to publish a book about this. I also wanted to hire ghostwriters to build a ghost pen name, did a number of them. It was all over the place. And so I open up one of my publishing accounts, and my mentor looked at it that day in Chicago, and he's scrolling through the reports and he points right at one book and he goes, "What's that book?" I start to explain him. And he's like, "That's your business." He's like, "You start building that out. Don't do anything else. Don't ghostwrite. Don't put any children's books out. You're just going to focus on this." And that book was the 90-day home workout plan. When he saw that that had a very good, successful launch, that was my second official fitness book. The first one,
Mm.
it's garbage. Good luck if you find it somewhere. It's probably in some half-price books. Don't waste your money. Just let it collect dust on the shelf. But that book did really well and still continues to sell for me. I'm very happy about it.
That's awesome.
But he was pretty much sat down and got me to where I understood what I needed to do. So officially, instead of having this fire hose just swinging around in the wind, just going no direction, he grabbed that nozzle, pointed it right at the base of the fire, lit that thing up. And he said to me, I remember we started thinking, he's like, "I'm going to tell you, if you follow what I say to the T in 6 months from now, you're going to see a big difference. Your business is going to explode." 6 months to the day that he said that to me, that's when, boom, one of my compilations that I had launched that specific point had taken off. It was really selling like hotcakes. I was blowing past these established fitness authors and influencers and such, hitting the number one. And this is not just number one of some obscure category. We're talking in health and fitness and dieting over on Amazon's page. So I was selling hundreds to thousands of copies to get that position. So he was right. And wasn't until I sacrificed myself to the fact that, okay, I don't know it all. I can't try to know it all right now. I need to go to someone who knows what I need to know so that way I can get it all now instead of learning it the hard way like I had done for the first year and a half. And yeah, it was life changing. He and I stay in touch, and I always tell him, I absolutely owe him so much. And it was one of those cases that he taught me who I was without being like, "Hey, you're too scattered. Stop it." He never said anything like that. It was almost
Yeah.
like do this, 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 and this, and avoid doing this. And I'm like,
Very
man,
prescriptive. Yeah. So why did you use the term delusional? Is it because you weren't really acknowledging that you needed help? I mean, what was that moment where you were like, I know you said, "Oh, we saw this opportunity to get free coaching. Let's just get up there and do that." But
yeah.
still, I mean, that's a big decision
Mhm.
when you're facing the mounting debt and all the things that obviously were impacting your finances. But you used the word, I was delusional. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to explore that a little bit.
I didn't know near enough to be successful at this business as I should have been, especially leaving a job. Had I stayed there another couple of years, it would have been a different scenario altogether. I was delusional because I believed that I had enough of the insights to earn a substantial amount of money. The problem was there was so much to this business. I mean, I'm still 11 years into this business, still learning. And just to kind of even further give you further proof, good friend of mine, Mark Leslie Lefebvre, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mark. Mark founded Kobo Writing Life, amazing Canadian author. Love the guy. He's been in the business since the early 90s. He had actually, again, started Kobo Writing Life, very big publishing company. They distribute books over to Kobo. And it was about a year or two ago. And I seen on his social media timeline that he just graduated college. And I'm like, you did what? I'm like, congratulations. But here's the part that gets me here. And this is when I realized I'm like, I don't know Jack because this man who founded a publishing company for indie authors went to college to get a degree in publishing. What? And I immediately I go, okay, dude, we got to talk. Why did you go get a degree in publishing? And he's just like, I want to learn. I want to learn more. I want to be very much in tune with all of publishing. And I thought, oh my gosh. And like I said, this was a couple of years ago. And that's when I said, again, this was another one of those points of, I really don't know what I don't know. I need to keep learning. So, me being delusional, I thought I had all of the skills I needed. I thought I had all the insights. I thought all I needed was just a good work ethic. And sometimes a good work ethic is great, but you can't necessarily hang drywall with just a hammer alone. You're going to need some nails or screws or
Yeah.
things like that. And I'm showing up with drywall and a hammer and going, bam, 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 and just trying to just attach it to a wall with nothing holding it up because I didn't know any better. So that's where
Mm.
like the delusional, it's not me trying to be pessimistic or negative on myself. I just know enough self-awareness that back then, past Dale, he needed to stop sniffing his own farts. He wasn't that good. He wasn't all that in a bag of chips. And I think when I humbled myself, when I said,
Uh,
all right, I'm going to get somebody else to help me get out of this because I knew by that point, because I mean, this was a deep conversation we had about paying for a round trip airfare and then getting an Airbnb and of course taking time away from our respective businesses to go out to there. But I knew at that time we were in trouble. I knew that at any point I might actually have to call up my former employers, which oddly enough, they
wow.
said, if you're ever back in the business, you just go ahead and give us
Mm.
a call. And it's funny, I had that life preserver, and thank goodness I never had to use that life preserver.
I'm glad you didn't because you've accomplished a tremendous amount. So, this is
Gotcha.
a good spot for us to take a break, and we'll have part two next with Dale. Well, I know you're disappointed, but that's it for this episode. Listen, the great news is there's another one coming, so stay tuned. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you do the prompt if this episode had a prompt and you get that homework done because you're going to be a better solopreneur. How's that for a maternal finger shaking at you? Hey, listen, thanks so much for being here, for giving me time of your day, and, for taking it on. So if you want to learn more and stay connected with me, just head on over to mysolopreneurlife.com. Thanks a bunch. See you soon. That was pretty good. I think I'll keep that one.